For years, saying you bought a Chinese motorcycle was like admitting you chose the cheapest option on the lot. Riders would nod politely, then warn you about reliability, cheap plastics, or parts that never arrived. But 2025 tells a different story. The numbers, the technology, and even the racing results show something most riders haven't caught up to yet. China's motorcycle industry isn't trying to compete anymore, it's winning. Brands like CFMoto, Kove, NIU, and QJ Motor are carving out global market share from Honda, Yamaha, and even KTM. The stigma still lingers, but the data proves it's outdated. What used to be budget bikes are now engineering projects backed by aggressive R&D, race wins, and international design talent. Let's start with the foundation, scale. In manufacturing, scale changes everything: cost, reach, and ultimately, who can afford to innovate faster? China already dominates global vehicle production, and motorcycles are no exception. In 2025, China's two-wheel exports continue breaking records, feeding more than 80 countries. CFMoto alone sold over 121,000 units in the first half of 2025, a 10.2% year-over-year jump. Compare that with Honda's 5.2% growth, and you see the shift. Honda's total is still massive, but its rhythm is steady and incremental. CFMoto's is accelerating. Here's fact 1. China's motorcycle factories operate on a level of flexibility Japan can't match. Many Chinese producers reconfigure assembly lines within weeks to respond to global demand shifts. Honda and Yamaha rely on months-long planning cycles due to their fixed global infrastructure. That's agility versus tradition. Fact 2. Vertical integration gives Chinese manufacturers a built-in cost advantage. Brands like QJ Motor and CFMoto source engines, electronics, and frames through domestic suppliers that also supply each other. This dense ecosystem shrinks shipping costs and accelerates product updates. In Japan, specialized suppliers are spread across regions, adding logistical layers that slow responsiveness. Fact 3 is about export penetration. 10 years ago, most Chinese motorcycles never left domestic soil. Now, CFMoto has established distributors across Europe, Latin America, and North America. Euro sales grew 54% in 2025 alone. In Latin America, nearly doubled, up 97.6%. These aren't small runs. These are container ships full of mid-displacement adventure bikes heading to markets where Japanese firms once had an open field. Fact 4. Partnership strategy. CFMoto's collaboration with KTM turned skeptics into believers. By sharing engine platforms and chassis technologies, CFMoto gained decades of Austrian engineering insight overnight. In exchange, KTM sidestepped production bottlenecks and gained efficient Chinese assembly capabilities. That partnership blurred the old line between cheap manufacture and premium design. Now, many of KTM's sub-800cc models are built in China to European tolerances, under European supervision, but they roll out of Chinese plants with lower-cost structures. Fact 5 deals with perception versus reality. Riders still assume "made in China" means corners cut, but modern Chinese production uses automation levels similar to Japan's. Robotic welding cells, precision casting, and quality audits are standard practice. And when a Chinese factory encounters a design flaw, they can reboot the production run in half the time required by most major Japanese players. It's this iterative speed that produces noticeably improved model year updates. That's why a CFMoto 450 MT from 2023 and one from 2025 feel like different generations. The company refined ergonomics, tripled ride mode settings, and upgraded suspension hardware, all based on customer and racing feedback. At the surface, Honda and Yamaha still dominate sales charts, but their growth is linear. Chinese growth is exponential, eating into the mid-range segments that used to fund Japan's R&D budgets. And here's the irony. The same economic scale Japan used to build dominance in the 1980s now belongs to China. Every percentage point gained by Chinese brands means millions more invested back into global distribution and R&D. That feedback loop, volume feeding development and development feeding volume, is precisely how Japan overtook Europe 40 years ago. The pattern's repeating, just with different flags on the fuel tanks. Scale creates opportunity, but design and R&D make buyers trust it. Fact 6. Chinese brands finally changed how motorcycles are conceived by merging Western design houses with homegrown engineering. CFMoto's styling for the 700 CLX and 800 MT series came directly from European studios. Sharp lines, premium materials, real personality. These bikes don't just copy. They compete for aesthetic attention in showrooms that once dismissed Chinese entries as clones. The design confidence came from data. Focus groups in Europe and Australia guided everything from seat height to switchgear layout, while cost remained unbeatable. Fact 7. Kove's racing first development strategy. Unlike brands that spend years in R&D labs before testing, Kove throws prototypes into world-class competition early. At the Dakar Rally, Kove shocked everyone by finishing all bikes in 2023, doubling entries in 2024, then fielding 12 machines in 2025, with 9 crossing the final checkpoint. That's a 75% finish rate, matching or exceeding several European factory teams. Racing exposed weaknesses instantly, and each year's production bikes incorporated fixes from the dunes and deserts. It's a brutal, efficient feedback loop. Instead of building design credibility with advertising, Kove did it through grit and results. Fact 8 revolves around acquisition of technology. Partnerships and licensing deals have given Chinese brands access to engine architectures, braking systems, and electronics packages once reserved for the Big Four. The real transformation came when CFMoto began assembling KTM's LC8C parallel twin, an engine revered for smooth torque and compact size. That know-how spurred CFMoto's own 800cc units, which now feature similar performance with reduced manufacturing cost. It's not just copying, it's internalizing advanced engineering and evolving it. In practice, that means a rider buying an 800 MT in 2025 is getting KTM-grade hardware and ride-by-wire tech in a package several $1,000s cheaper. Fact 9. Chinese brands have become fast learners in component quality. The stereotype of bad suspension and weak brakes no longer holds up. Most mid-range models now ship with KYB or Marzocchi forks, Brembo calipers, and Bosch ABS. The difference isn't just branding, it signals global supplier trust. When Japanese component makers willingly deliver first-tier hardware to Chinese assembly lines, it's because quality assurance has reached international certification levels. Those parts used to be reserved only for premium European orders. 2025 supply chains tell a different story. Equal standards, broader access, faster iteration. Fact 10 ties all of this together. The leap from copying to competing. For a long time, Japanese teams innovated slowly but precisely. Chinese engineering adopted the opposite rhythm: rapid trial, adjustment, and relaunch. That means mistakes, yes, but faster progress overall. A development cycle that used to take Yamaha 3 or 4 years now takes CFMoto 1 to 1.5. The payoff shows up in features like full-color TFT dashboards, advanced traction control maps, and frame designs optimized through digital modeling rather than sheer tradition. When you compare spec sheets, Chinese bikes often equal or beat Japanese equipment, then sell for up to 25% less. Here's the hidden advantage. By skipping legacy costs, older plants, boxed-in management systems, and massive dealer subsidies, Chinese firms spend proportionally more on raw innovation. In 2025, much of Japan's top engineering talent collaborates with Chinese R&D through partnerships, consulting, or direct employment. That brain drain isn't dramatic in headlines, but it's happening steadily. So the conversation's shifting. Riders no longer ask just, is it reliable? But why does this CFMoto or Kove offer so much equipment at this price? The answer is simple math. Massive domestic scale, international design input, shared high-grade component supply chains, and shorter feedback cycles. China's motorcycle sector now iterates like the tech industry: launch, learn, improve, relaunch. Each model year closes the quality gap further, and in some categories, it's gone already. That's where the stigma collapses. The data isn't emotional, it's measurable. Racing results, production quality, export growth, and partnership reach all point the same way. For the first time in decades, the Japanese Big Four are watching competitors that aren't European. They're Chinese, and they're moving faster. Let's talk reach and price, two areas where Chinese brands have flipped the script entirely. Fact 11. Penetration. A decade ago, most Chinese motorcycles were trapped in domestic showrooms or low-margin export runs to Africa or Southeast Asia. By 2025, that map's completely different. CFMoto is in over 80 countries, doubling dealer coverage across Europe and Latin America. Shipments to Europe are up 54% year over year, and South America has seen a staggering 97% growth. It's not just counting units, it's territory gained. Japan's established presence still leads in total numbers, but the spread of Chinese bikes into previously loyal Yamaha or Honda markets is dramatic because it targets segments the big brands almost abandoned: affordable adventure, mid-displacement touring, and sporty commuters under 800cc. Fact 12 centers on pricing power. For riders, the math is simple. The average CFMoto 800 MTX undercuts a comparable Honda Transalp by nearly $4,000, while matching it in torque and electronics. The QJ Motor SRK 800RR squares off with Yamaha's R7 at similar performance levels, but comes in roughly $3,000 cheaper. These aren't discount bikes anymore. They're value attackers. And that pricing edge isn't achieved through cheap labor alone. Vertical integration, domestic engine casting, electronics, and component supply cuts middleman margins that Japanese conglomerates still pay. Because most suppliers are domestic and shared among multiple Chinese brands, production efficiency rises as the ecosystem scales. Fact 13. Exchange rate insulation. Chinese brands benefit from producing and sourcing almost entirely within yuan-denominated networks, insulating them from global currency swings that squeeze Japanese exporters. In times when the yen strengthens, Honda and Yamaha lose price flexibility abroad. Chinese makers don't. That's one reason Latin American dealers now carry CFMoto and VOGE alongside traditional Japanese names, because stable pricing means predictable returns, something smaller markets rely on. Fact 14 shifts to dealer experience. Distribution no longer feels improvised. Earlier, buying a Chinese bike meant worrying about spare parts or warranty delay. By early 2025, CFMoto's European logistics centers can deliver 92% of parts orders within 5 days. Kove built regional service hubs tuned for its rally platforms, giving dealers the same technical support levels Honda provides. That speed has made mid-tier dealerships more willing to switch. For customers, after-sales stability removes the last big hesitation, bridging the trust gap. And Fact 15 ties it together: the perception edge that comes through performance pricing. When a brand offers European styling, proven reliability stats, and full electronics packages for 25% less, the competitive equation changes. CFMoto can afford to compress margins because every exported unit feeds massive domestic production runs. Honda or Yamaha, constrained by heritage cost structures, can't always respond without undercutting their own premium models. The result? Chinese motorcycles undercut Japanese ones, not only at the showroom, but in long-term ownership costs, lower parts prices, fewer proprietary systems, and cheaper accessories. That's how brand loyalty starts to shift, one invoice at a time. The broader picture: Chinese motorcycles used to fight for relevance. Now, they fight for dominance. They enter markets with price agility Japan once used to dominate Europe in the 80s. It's the same strategic playbook, updated with digital data, faster logistics, and global-level fit and finish. As more Western riders realize the performance gap has disappeared, pricing becomes the loudest argument. And right now, that argument is speaking Mandarin. Price and reach only work if reliability backs them up, and that's where perceptions lag furthest behind. Fact 16. Measurable dependability. The 2025 reliability data from major European dealerships shows average warranty claim rates for CFMoto at 2.9%. Honda sits around 2.1%. The gap's nearly closed, far smaller than riders imagine. Kove's Dakar completion rate, 9 out of 12 bikes finishing in 2025, mirrors KTM's factory success ratio. Those aren't anecdotal wins. They're statistical proof that modern Chinese engineering can withstand brutal real-world conditions. Fact 17 highlights manufacturing oversight. Gone are the scattered third-party assembly contracts of old. CFMoto, QJ Motor, and VOGE now run ISO-certified plants using European and Japanese audit standards. Robotic precision welding, torque tracking tools, and automated QR verification for every chassis ensure uniform builds. Even more interesting, Chinese brands now invite international journalists and import partners to view testing labs freely, a transparency move aimed squarely at killing outdated myths. When a factory willingly posts its failure rate graphs, that's confidence talking. Honda and Yamaha earned their reputations this way in the 70s. China's repeating that process, just at fast-forward speed. Fact 18 deals with long-term endurance and parts longevity. One reason Japanese bikes built their legend was that they could sit in a garage for 2 months and start instantly. Today, modern Chinese bikes use components from global suppliers, Bosch ECUS, NGK Spark Systems, Gates drive belts, that guarantee consistency. Owners report smoother cold starts, durable finish quality, and increasing resale values. After 3 years, used CFMoto 650 and 700 series models now retain about 72% of their value, compared with mid-70s for comparable Honda twins. That's within statistical noise, basically parity. There's also a psychological dimension. Once a brand clears the reliability test in racing, dealers trust warranty data, and riders witness parts availability, the old stigma fades fast. Just like Korean cars 20 years ago, word of mouth becomes the new marketing. You hear riders say, "I've done 10,000 miles, 0 issues," and that spreads faster than any ad campaign. So the reliability story is no longer a defense, it's validation. The fact that CFMoto's claim numbers nearly match Honda's and Kove's race completion rates rival KTM's tells us this isn't a fluke. These are system-level improvements built from process control, not luck. What's happening across the industry feels familiar. When a rising manufacturer starts matching the benchmark in dependability while staying cheaper, momentum shifts hard. By 2025, the conversation has evolved from "will it last" to "why pay more for the same endurance?" That's the question echoing in showrooms from Santiago to Stuttgart, and it's why the next decade might belong to the bikes wearing Chinese badges. Here's where China pulls ahead in areas Japan once defined: future tech. Fact 19. The electric frontier. Chinese brands like NIU, Champ, and CFMoto are now shaping global expectations for battery motorcycles. Search interest for electric motorcycles inside China tripled between late 2024 and mid-2025 as government incentives and aggressive R&D funds kicked in. While Honda and Yamaha continue to treat electrics as niche experiments, China's treating them like mainstream commuters. NIU's MQiG-TEVO and CFMoto's E-C. Play prototypes already show battery swap convenience baked into their designs, something Japan's major players still pilot only in limited fleets. China's edge comes from scale and policy. Domestic battery suppliers, KATL, Eve Energy, and Goshen, provide local reserves of cells optimized for two-wheel use. That means consistent sourcing and quick integration for dozens of bike manufacturers at once. By contrast, Japanese brands import or co-develop packs in smaller batches, slowing rollout and keeping costs high. For everyday riders, that difference translates to better range per dollar. A NIU GT Evo lists roughly 20% cheaper than similar European electrics with near-identical performance, and it's backed by a full app ecosystem for diagnostics, geofencing, and remote lockout. Features Japanese firms reserve for premium trims. Fact 20 focuses on innovation leadership beyond batteries. China's R&D rhythm copies consumer electronics more than automotive cycles. Launch fast, gather data, upgrade quickly. CFMoto's software teams push multiple firmware updates each year, refining traction control maps and interface layouts through cloud feedback. Japanese brands traditionally issue one update for the full model life. Additive manufacturing and digital simulation are now fundamental. When QJ Motor designs a frame, prototypes emerge from high-precision 3D prints within days, not months. That agility keeps Chinese motorcycles visually fresh and mechanically current. Meanwhile, Japanese conservatism in innovation, careful, incremental, safe, has advantages for bulletproof quality, but slows bold leaps. Chinese engineers accept short-term flaws to chase iteration speed. Electric platforms benefit most from that mindset. The results show up everywhere. Regenerative braking tuned through user apps, Bluetooth-linked helmets syncing to dashboard navigation, and OTA performance tweaks. We're watching a software revolution inside motorcycle engineering led not by Tokyo or Osaka, but by Hangzhou and Chongqing. The broader pattern? In 2025, Chinese motorcycles don't just chase hardware parity, they chase continuous upgrade capability. Buyers now expect their bikes to evolve after purchase, like smartphones. That's a cultural shift Japan pioneered in the 1980s with mechanical dependability. China's doing it now with digital adaptability. The next leap, solid-state cells and AI-based safety aids, is already under factory testing. At this pace, by 2027, the conversation about who leads in smart mobility might not include Japan at all. Conclusion: what this means for the global motorcycle industry. So, what does all this add up to? The center of motorcycle innovation is tilting east, further than Japan. Historically, Europe defined style, Japan mastered reliability, and everyone else followed. Today, China's merging both while rewriting the cost equation. Every success from Kove's Dakar performance to CFMoto's export surge chips away at an old hierarchy built on reputation more than current reality. The industry ripple is massive. When one market can produce a rally-proven 450, an 800cc adventure twin, and an electric city bike, all built domestically, all priced under competitors, the global baseline for performance and value resets. Dealers in Europe who once flew to Tokyo for contracts are now booking trips to Hangzhou instead. Suppliers chasing growth realize margins are fatter when they align with China's scale ecosystem. Even Japanese engineers increasingly consult for Chinese brands, attracted by shorter development pipelines and creative freedom their home corporations rarely allow. Of course, not everything's perfect. Longevity data beyond 5 years is still limited, and some smaller Chinese makers might fall short on long-term service. Yet the direction is unmistakable. Quality convergence has already happened. Now the momentum's technological. Japan once changed world mobility by out-engineering Europe's complexity. China's now changing it by out-accelerating Japan's caution. In short, the motorcycle world's new energy, both electric and cultural, runs through Chinese factories. Whether you're loyal to Honda or curious about CFMoto, there's no denying the balance of innovation has shifted. The smartest move for any rider right now? Keep an open mind, because the next global icon might already be built, with Chinese characters etched under its paint. If you want more deep dives on emerging motorcycle tech and true industry data, hit subscribe and check out our next feature on how these developments could redefine touring and adventure bikes worldwide. Let's ride there together.